Hartford Public Access, Sargent Street in Hartford. Tonight we have Michael Freimuth, the Director of the Capital Region Development Authority, here with us to discuss the Excel Center plans and where they need to go from the original presentation. Peter Hindle from the Examiner.com and the other whaler guy. Michael, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Good to be back.
So, great presentation Thursday night. Great job with Dennis House on Channel 3 as well. What was the feedback you got?
It's been pretty positive. We've had, there's folks who beg the question, why do it? Which is logical at this point because we're just now stepping into the whole discussion. We've been telling folks for the better part of a year that we got to do something more, that patching it, holding it together for short windows is just good for short windows. And a significant effort has to be made, without which you run the jeopardy of the building going into a slow, inevitable decline. So we could, and the study goes through the options, and it doesn't say what the fourth option is, but the fourth option is to close the building. Not that anybody wants to do it tomorrow morning, but after 40 years and the building wearing out, it's running operational deficits. At some point, you beg the question that they asked in New Haven and other places. We think there's an economic value to sustaining the effort. We do need to modernize the building. It is a mid-20th century building, and we're going deep into the 21st.
Yes, we are.
At least it feels that way to me. So it's time to either put up or not, and the report goes through those steps, and that's what we're trying to do.
And it's important for people. It's important for people to know, though, that if nothing happens with the Excel, it's running at a loss. So it's actually costing people money to for the state to run the building each year.
Yeah.
And that would, of course, probably increase over time as less concerts and less events and less. I mean, UConn may not be interested in sticking around if nothing's done. So you have to worry about those things.
Precisely.
Yeah.
I mean, the money that we put in some $33 million. We've held back $2 million as kind of a safety net because it seems like every morning we wake up and we find a new surprise. And we said up front that was going to buy us a time to kind of sort out the pieces. But it is running a deficit, anywhere from $1.5 to $3 million a year, depending on how you run it that particular year, how lucky you get in certain events, and weather plays into it, and playoffs play into it, and concert sequences, and there's a variety of things that buffet you. But it's $1.5 million to $3 million each year. We got to write a check. Public does, and the only way you can improve the revenues is to improve what's offered, and not only the nature of events, but in the way the building works, the types of seats, the types of clubs, the types of suites, the concessions, the food and beveraging. Everything, sponsorships, naming rights, signs on the walls, these are all dollars. And today we're leaving a lot of it on the table and not bringing it into the building's operating, and that's costing taxpayers.
And that's, when we had Chris Lawrence on some time ago when they first took over with the Excel Center, their main mission was the fan experience. And for them to accomplish that goal, it goes right in line with updating the facility because they can't give someone a fan experience if they don't have the amenities to give them that experience. Like you talked on the previous show we had you on, was take out your phone. Here, beep, this is what you had.
Right.
This is what you had last week when you came to the game. You had a couple beers, you had some hot dogs, whatever.
Right.
Bought the kids all that sugar stuff, let them run around. But yeah, you need to know your client. You have to let them have a good time and have the amenities so they're not waiting in line holding their cash or holding their credit card over here and waiting for,
You
too
leave a
long.
lot of money out.
Yeah.
But you have to be happy with the investment so far, only from the standpoint that you put the fan bar in there and you put some amenities in there, and people have really enjoyed that fan bar. I've hung out there just to see kind of what it's like. Not everybody's completely engaged in every moment in the ice, but they're in it and they're watching it in their TVs and they're buying drinks for their friends, and that's the place to go. And so that's a little bit of a proof of concept kind of idea. And like if you build it, they will come. But as in if we offer these things, people would come in. And you've seen UConn now with 10 Hockey East games, 6,007 people.
Yep.
Overall, with the 11 games in Hartford, we have 58, 14, I believe. So you're showing some kind of minimal return on just that movement alone.
Yeah, it's interesting. The fan club, we measure things by per capita, how much we make by every person who walks through the door, and we got numbers on your head, so we're going to watch it. But the fan club is easily 50% more revenue per person than that corner of the building was previous.
Nice.
And a lot of it has to do with the fact that you're still in the event while you're enjoying the food and beverage.
Mhm.
Whereas before, you'd have to go out, drop down the stairwell, go through a set of doors,
Right.
go get in line.
Yeah.
Sometimes it wasn't automated, so you had to wait for people to process it.
Mhm.
It was usually tight, and the hallways are a little narrow. And one of two things happens: you lose some of the event. You don't have enough cash in your pocket,
Yep.
or you get tired of waiting and say, "The heck with it, the heck with it." And so dollars don't come into the building, and that just multiplies itself across thousands of people, literally, across hundreds of events, and
Right.
you get to see real quick what happens. So the fan club is, a little ways a test run. Today's buildings are just, in so many ways, gigantic restaurants with an event going on.
Yeah.
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 And people want to be entertained in different ways, but they also want to enjoy different foods. They go with different people. Some nights you go with business partners. Some days you go with your family. Your approach to the event differs. You've got to accommodate all those differences. And the kids want to go out and play videos, and they want to go out and shoot hoop, and they want to touch things and play with things, and others want to sit there and watch. And you got to sort of program your building in many ways as possible.
Right.
That's what this tries to get at. But it costs some money to get there. Again, it was built like a gigantic gym.
Yes.
And today these are entertainment palaces.
Right.
And
they are, yep.
there's a leap between them.
Mhm.
We've made some improvements. I think the building's more comfortable now than it was a year ago. It feels better. It looks better. The sandwiches taste a little better.
Yes, there's a little more quality in the food. Yes.
The beer is good, but when I walk around, I still see opportunities that we're not getting the cash on.
Right.
Not that should be the only thing, but as long as it's a public building, the more of that we get, the less we got to ask the General Assembly to supplement. And that therein lies the true test.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, were the doors going to be taken off?
They're off.
Oh, they're off.
They're off.
So you can actually see the arena as you
Yeah.
walk
See
in.
through.
Actually,
Yes.
today I was in the fan club and I was looking through to Ann Street,
Ah,
and I could see the agave from
and,
far.
and doesn't it feel better?
It feels better.
Yeah.
Not only feels better, but you can stand in the concession line and still see depending on where you are.
Yeah,
Of course,
yeah.
not every angle allows this.
Right.
But you can stand in a concession line and see the scoreboard or the event.
Nice.
And you can stand on the concession, on the concourse now, the concession concourse, and you can look across to the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you're in a building, you don't know if you're in the same
Yeah.
concourse
Yes.
time after time after
Yeah, that's
time.
true.
Yes.
It's like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, exactly.
I've gone by this before. No, actually there's 4 of these,
Yeah.
and you've gone by 4 of them, but
Yeah.
no one really knows that. Now the building is open. It takes some of that congestion feeling out.
Right.
It gives you a sense of location.
Mm-hmm.
It allows you to still hear the event, see the event,
Right.
see the score, feel part of it. We're still patching up the concrete and the floors to where the doors were, and that's an ongoing process. In fact,
Sure.
today they were in there patching concrete, but and we'll catch up to it, just in time to go into the slow summer months.
Now, will that also help with the air movement within the facility?
Yeah, in fact, under the old codes, those walls and doors were critical for the air vac, the smoke evac
Yep.
systems. Under the new code, it's a different type of system. We pull the air in different ways, and it got to the point we weren't sure if we were helping or hurting ourselves with the doors.
Yeah.
And the engineers were going back and forth trying to balance everything.
Yeah.
And it just got to a point where everybody agreed, let's get the doors off and run the building and
Right.
tweak it to where it can perform. That's critical because you get some events in there that have smoke. There's some concerts, these monster truck things.
Oh,
There's just
Yeah.
places where you have to do that.
Right.
And then there's obviously the fire and safety codes that demand it. So, but it feels better. Anybody who hasn't been in the building in a while should go down there. It truly does feel better. We're negotiating to take over the atrium, the center court areas. To maintain that, manage that. That's not done by the arena today. So we want to bring the fan experience a little bit further out. We're negotiating to acquire the garage across the street. At the time we can actually close that deal, we're going to make investments in that building to link it closer.
nice.
Not just physically, so you feel comfortable going between the 2 buildings and the catwalks as well as the street, but we can tie your ticket pricing to your parking. And so there's a lot of little things yet in the pipeline that have to come together.
And that was a big thing that we heard way back when they were talking about not just the Wolf Pack, but other events downtown, why don't they ever include parking? You know, hey, all right, it's another extra $10 for parking. If you make it affordable, people will say, oh, I'll buy the ticket with the parking, and then I don't have to worry about anything. It makes perfect sense. I mean, you know, you have to kind of search where you want to park, and the only way, you know, is we go down all the time. We have our spots that we scope out.
But there's an anxiety that goes with parking.
Yes, it
And,
is.
and people want to
Especially
know
in
their
the-
car's okay. They want to know there's enough distance to get between the car and the event in a timely way. They want to know that the event will get out at a time when the garage will still be open.
Exactly.
Right? And you know, and there's different standards, there's different pricing. You're prepared to pay X, and it turns out to be twice X. You don't quite know why. Uniformity is critical. The building has not been able to offer that. And we're trying now to advertise linkages to garages. We're working with the Hartford Parking Authority to do, you know, certain pricing. Often it's not price sensitivity, it's the assurity that I got a spot, I know where it is,
Right.
I'm gonna be good when I'm done. I can go out to eat afterwards or beforehand, it's all booked into the same nickel. And you remove that, do I have to deal with parking? And that's a big play in the business.
Yeah.
It's huge. I worked with a guy who worked for in the city for 30 years, and he says people complain to him all the time. Where am I going to park? Where am I going to park? How much is it going to cost me? You know. And I said, well, they're working on that, especially with the XL Center and so on. And so he was like, good, then I'll go to the XL Center. So you know, he's bought into that. So it's going to be interesting. Now the remodel that you did with the 33 million. One of the news stations said that's really a 5-year Band-Aid. Is that accurate?
Probably fair. I mean, we can stretch it 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
We have in our own mind worked on the theory that if we can convince the General Assembly, which really means convince the greater community, that we should reboot this building. And there are 3 options. One does not work. We know that. We tested it out. That is to stay in the footprint that exists. So the other 2 require us to expand the building's profile. One, to basically reassemble the structure that's there, and the second one to kind of take it down and put up a new building.
Right.
The differential in pricing is pretty significant.
Right.
But if we're able to convince folks to do that, we see it as a 2 to 3 year process of construction and probably a year worth of design and choreography.
Okay.
What gets done when, under what sequence, while you're still trying to run the hockey and basketball seasons, which are the prime seasons for the building. We can give up on some shows and events and you know, special things that might occur in the April to October range, but really October to March, that's when the building really kind of hits its money.
Yes.
That's when people know it, for whether it's UConn basketball, UConn hockey now, or the Wolf Pack. That's when we make our VIG. So, but what you can do and how you can do it, it can only be done in that certain window.
Right, and you talk about convincing people, and 2 of the people, or 2 of the organizations, or well, you kind of be one. You need them to get involved with the building in order to make that work, and also people are concerned about getting the atrium, you know, as part of the footprint, because as you said, the current footprint that is under ownership of the city and state right now is like 145,000 square feet. The atrium would give you an extra, I think it's 73,000 square feet, give you 218,000 square feet, and then you can. That's the whole, and people were surprised at how big that footprint was when you compare it with, and that was really the key to the whole meeting was, you know, look at this footprint compared to you did it to Boston, Madison Square Garden, Toronto, Vancouver. You know, I think only Pittsburgh was a little bit larger than us, about like 8,000 square feet, and Pittsburgh was just built. I think that was what 2007, 2006.
Yeah, it was in the last 5 years.
Yeah, within the last 5 years. So that comparable stat is the breath of fresh air to everybody, because it's a possibility. You know?
Yeah, and I was surprised. I had really come to the resolution that we probably couldn't stay there.
Right.
The city really made it a point saying we really don't want the building to move. We want to stay at this intersection. And there were a variety of reasons for it. The ballpark issue on the downtown north area, but just being a civic center in true sense, and being at that corner with the restauranting and the hotels, why disrupt? You know, what do you do with it if you don't? Getting into it, the first question we asked the consultant team was, you know, what is our market? I mean, what are we building? Because we have 60 suites in there. If you had to put 60 suites in the way they need to be put in today, we probably couldn't stay there. But the question wasn't really how do you factor in club seat versus a low seat versus a sky suite versus a party box or any of that stuff. The question really was, what is it that Connecticut has as a market? And I say Connecticut, not Hartford.
Right.
What are the points that are critical to bring them in, to score with those price points? How do we bring the right folks in the building, get them to spend the right amount of money, under what combination of events? Once we define that, the secondary question was, does it sustain a new building? Okay, what would that new building look like? And then we said, can we fit it in? So there was a kind of a step-by-step process. It could have gotten what we call the, basically it would have been a death knell at any one point. It could have said, sorry, that's it.
Yep.
We can't get past this, do not pass go, because the answer is no and you're not going to solve your problem. But each time it came back, yes, all right, and we stepped it through. We know today, we're convinced today, we can make more money for UConn as a partner in a building. When we say partner, different than being a tenant, because today they're a tenant. They pay us a rent, they pay us a small facility fee per ticket, and we collect the food and the beverage nickels. The new method is to share the revenues, tickets, sponsorships, beverages, food, everything that building generates with UConn in a different format, but to sell many different types of price points. The same way that GM has a Cadillac and a Chevy. Some people want to pay more for some things, people want basic transportation. If you put a car in between, they're unhappy on both ends. We kind of got a car in between. We got kind of, it's not quite high end, it's not quite low end. The guy who doesn't want to pay a lot moans and groans. The guy who wants to get something more is upset he can't get it. So we got to put more products in the street. And to do that, the benefit becomes the building meets what we believe would be a standard for an NHL professional team. And that's a critical question everybody always asks. And being on the show, I should put it up there.
Yeah, it was coming. It was definitely coming.
I mean, the issue really is if we build the right building based on what the Connecticut marketplace can sustain, we can do better for UConn than it does today, which is critical for their long-term budgeting and planning. It's critical for us for long-term operational for the building. And it removes what has been the first hurdle anybody looks at, whether or not you have a building that meets their needs. And what are their needs? It's not simply skating between the blue lines. It's what does this building produce in revenue based on what we have to spend to run a product. Does the business program work? We think it does. We can model it for UConn. It will be positioned in such a way that it can be easily applied to a professional team's needs. When you look at the corporate community, we have more Fortune 500s than any 10, not any 10, I shouldn't say that, New York might be this, but at least 10 that I've identified, different NBA, NHL marketplaces. We have secondary markets, large major employers that tap, not least being the state employment.
There's 16 Fortune 500 statewide it was. So,
and that's the other critical question. Within 30 minutes, we have 1 million people. I think it's 1.2 million.
Yeah, it is.
Within 60 minutes, we have a 3.1 million.
Yeah.
That puts us in the mid-range of marketplaces in America. Better than Raleigh, better than Buffalo, better than Salt Lake City, better than what we think are major markets. Now, honestly, we have more entertainment options too. I mean, people go to New York, people go to Boston, people have other things to do in the region. We got Oakdale Theater just on the edge of town. In Wallingford that would take concerts, and we have to compete. So there are things that obviously change the dynamic of it's not simply just population. But over half of our population makes more than $75K a household, $75,000 a year median income. More than half our population is in the chief buying demographic between 20 and 59. Nearly 60% of our population has a high school diploma or higher. I don't know what more you would want to plug in between the number of people, how highly educated, their income levels, their age groupings. When you put that together to this particular building, it does lend itself as an operating model. Now, how do you jumpstart it?
Right.
Yeah, it's the $250 million.
That's right.
But you bring up the great point, because those this is the market analysis from SCI that did these numbers, and they had them. But it's great to see that there's this many things. It puts to rest a lot of skepticism about the market. And then the other thing was about for UConn, 80,000 people within that 60-mile radius.
80,000 alumni.
Yeah, alumni.
Yes.
Sorry,
Yes.
alumni. And
Yeah.
I think statewide it was 129,000. So for UConn, you're showing that base there, and we didn't need any more evidence to see the attendance this year
Oh,
and
exactly.
the crowd
Oh, my
involvement.
God.
But the market analysis was very key, because it frameworks Hartford as to what it really is. Where does it compare to other markets, as you said, with Buffalo, Salt Lake, Birmingham? So is it the greatest market in the world? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, the Whalers never been higher than 13th in attendance the entire time they were here. But they were comparable to Boston in the 80s. As a matter of fact, they outdrew them 4 out of 10 years. So when people give me that not competitive, I'm going, well,
Yeah.
they weren't as good as the Boston Bruins, but they outdrew them 4 of 10 years.
Yeah.
That's a different demographic. The demographic's better now.
Demographic is pretty good. And as I was joking earlier, a winning team would help.
Oh, absolutely.
That never hurts.
But
Especially in this
on the
market.
same
Yeah.
respect, look what happened with UConn hockey. They didn't blow out the doors, but when they were at home,
Yeah.
they won.
Yeah.
And you saw the
They
support.
drove-
I think
yeah.
the UConn hockey program coming into the XL Center
Yeah.
on top of UConn basketball was like
Yeah.
the cherry on top of the sundae, because it showed
Right.
people, you bring UConn in, it's Connecticut's team, really, if you think about it.
They're
You know,
rooting the flag.
yeah, and that's
Oh,
really
sure,
what it is.
sure.
You know, the AHL has failed in the attendance in the last
Right.
couple of years, and really what it is it our team? And no disrespect to Wolfpack people out there,
Yeah.
but it's a Ranger team. It's a
Yeah.
New York-based team,
Right.
and now you throw UConn hockey in.
Yeah.
Yes, inaugural season, people are like, oh, the polish will shine off, and
Yeah.
they'll be nobody will come. No, I
Yeah.
don't believe that.
Actually, I
at all.
think more will come.
Yes.
We originally opened just the lower bowl,
Mhm.
and as the season progressed, we opened the upper bowl.
Yep.
That's right.
And the building feels better when it's
Curtainless.
well, no, actually,
Oh my God.
for the lower bowl is ideal for hockey.
Mhm.
Right.
You know, it brings you right on the action. It's comfortable. You get up there to nosebleeds. You know, are you really in the game?
Yeah.
But why have people scattered? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yes.
And also, frankly, it lowers our overhead.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, the number of security officers, the number of attendees, the number of
It's the pickup,
concessions,
it's the clean.
Yep.
lighting, all the elements of running the building
Mhm.
become more manageable when we open just the lower bowl.
Mhm.
And if the event fills the lower bowl, we've hit an optimum point.
Mhm.
You know,
Yep.
in the beauty of a break-even point,
Yep.
it looks sweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it works for us. If we have to creep it open further,
Mhm.
that's all bonus.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Like the first game.
Yeah. First
All
game
the
in November
people
5th
who were
against
irritated
BC.
they couldn't come in.
Yeah,
How
they
about
were
that?
turned
Oh,
away.
they turned them
How about
away.
that?
I'm like, turned them
The
away.
attendance was capped at 89. We don't know how many people came up
Yeah.
that were turned
Yeah.
away, but that wasn't exactly a bad thing, because you generate some demand.
Right.
And everybody's like, oh, you missed that game? You should have gotten your tickets earlier.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like Fenway, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
34,000 seats, and you buy them in January because
Yep.
you're worried about that
Yeah.
August game.
Exactly.
Whereas a Yankee with 80,000, you buy it in
Yeah,
August.
right, exactly right.
Now we got to ask you one NHL question.
Yeah.
Can you tell us from this point, from a year ago to now, are our chances about the same, better, worse? I mean, how are we doing in the endeavor to try and
Well,
lure NHL?
I don't know if we're any better because
Yeah.
we haven't done anything.
Right.
I mean, a lot of
That's
talk.
true,
we
too.
got,
Yeah,
got,
Yeah,
you
you
know,
gotta.
got
It's paper.
a lot of
Yeah.
paper here. It does give us a roadmap, though, to answer the two critical questions that we can address.
Right.
Do we have a market? I do believe that's here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can we get enough earnings off of this market
Mhm.
to underwrite the business program that an NHL team would expect?
Mhm.
I think the answer to that is yes. Is there a way you can deliver a building, and can you tell us what it will cost and how long it will take,
Mhm.
and will it meet the needs of the league? We now see a way of doing that. We now see a way of doing that in part because we got to do something with what we have, and by doing it, we make it better for UConn, and the payoff on that is we position ourselves for the NHL. So there are steps here before us that can be taken or at least debated now.
Right.
If we can solve the building problem
Mhm.
and we can show the market issue,
Mhm.
then it's a matter of getting a moving piece.
Well, the important thing is one of the big things for the NHL is after you presented, the CRDA did the presentation of the XL Center, the Hockey News picked it up, ran with it,
Yeah.
Nesson gave us a huge compliment about
Yeah,
the
on
UConn
TV, I don't know if you
attendance,
heard that one.
and they
Yeah.
said Connecticut and Hartford is a hockey market. Look what UConn's done. Look at the 7,000 people at the game the other night. So when you get into national interest, especially because the hockey news picked up and said, hey, the XL Center is getting a remodel, and then all of a sudden, hey, the Whalers coming back, and we're far away from that, but it was nice to see someone on a national scale do it. Michael, we appreciate you coming on.
It's been fun.
And
Very much.
we'll stay in touch, and they're going to do a tour out there, and we'll be there to report back to the Whaler fans, and the Whaler guys will be on the streets beating it. Hey, have a great one.